Hello and welcome to Pursuit of Perfect System. We are doing video update number 3 for the Chord Electronics DAVE Dac. Now this is not the review, this is really just an update to where we are with it, because like most products, when you get them in, they don't sound their best straight away. You go through a learning curve, you work out the best ways and means to integrate them into the system and then get the best performance out of them. With a product like the DAVE, with all the different flexibility and the way you can use it, and get just the outright general performance, I thought it'd be quite interesting to see how I started to compare to how I finished. And if you watched the first video, I really wasn't sure about it. The second video, I was made a massive improvement using the DAVE as a DAC and Pre Amplifier, but I still wasn't 100%. I was in complete admiration for certain aspects, but there was a few things that just wasn't quite right. I think the sound was coming over a little bit hard. Even though it was massively clean and clear, it was coming over maybe a little bit hard and a bit forced, and it was all sounding a little bit lean and maybe a little bit unnatural and stuff. So that is where I've been really since sort of update video 2 and update video 3. I've been trying to fix the issues with the sound, and it's very, very easy to think, right, well, this is the new product, this is the cause. And sometimes that's not the case at all. Sometimes the new product highlights problems elsewhere. And I've often said this to people. Sometimes I found with the system, when I'm trying to make improvements, is that I often go sideways or backwards before I go forward. Sometimes it's 2 steps backwards in order to go 5 steps forwards. I've experienced that a lot. And that really has been the case with the DAVE. When I first put it in, really, and even up until the point now, and even now, I think it's been highlighting things that I've got wrong, parts of the setup that I've got wrong. I don't mean necessarily from the DAVE onwards, I actually mean from before the DAVE, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So I've been sitting listening to it a lot, and I've been trying to work out the reasons for things, like sitting listening to it thinking, right, this sounds so good, but there's bits here that just are not quite right, and I'm just thinking about it, what can I do? So in the last video I made, I said about making changes, didn't I? The fact that we're starting at such a more advanced point in terms of clarity and resolution. Did that mean that things that I'd done before putting the DAVE in were wrong? Maybe I was trying to force detail, because we always want more resolution and clarity, and if we're not getting it from a product in the chain, maybe we're trying to compensate elsewhere. And things like Dirac Live really allow you to do that. And this is where people talk about maybe system synergies and stuff like that. Are we getting a brighter source to try and balance with a more flat sounding amplifier? Just as an example. So I thought to myself, right, let's think about what I've done and how can I maybe incorporate that to get the DAVE to the next level of sound performance. So for starters, I thought, well, if we keep things simple, using the DAVE as a DAC and preamplifier, we're keeping that aspect of the chain simple. Now, from our source, which is a dedicated music server, or a computer and audio PC that I've custom built using a lot of dedicated parts from the company JCat, softwares from JPlay, audio file optimizer, and there's a lot going on with our music source. We've got multiple power supplies and stuff. It's a really well put together music source, and from that I feed to a Mutech MC3 Plus USB, which is a studio grade kind of reclocking unit, which has got a rubidium clock in it, a 1 GHz rubidium clock. And the reason I use that is because back maybe a year, 18 months ago, the DAC that I had, which actually was a Meridian preamplifier, AV processor, only accepted an SP-diff input. So I used the Mutech in the chain to convert USB to SP-diff, and everything was set up so nice, and I thought things sounded so good, is that it made sense to use that unit and keep that unit in the chain. Now, most people are probably screaming at me thinking, why are you not feeding USB straight into the DAVE? Why are you not feeding USB straight into other products? Well, this is why. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm doing that wrong. Maybe the Mutech MC3 Plus USB is the cause for certain aspects in the sound that are not working for me. So I disconnected that, connected straight to the DAVE, straight USB to the DAVE, exactly the same, and surprise, surprise, the sound got worse, and quite a bit worse actually. The sound actually had gone back to sounding just like when I used the DAVE as a DAC on its own, feeding into the Luxman C700U preamplifier. The sound was kind of bigger and bolder and kind of maybe richer sounding, maybe warmer sounding, but it was all artificial. The bass was sounding fuzzy, everything was sounding rough again. That kind of pristine, clean sound was gone, and we had that kind of rough sound back. And what was really interesting about that is that straight away that confirmed what I'd previously thought was wrong and right, i.e. moving over to using the DAVE as a DAC and preamplifier, removed a lot of that fuzz and noise and kind of roughness to give us a really clean and clear sound. So taking the Mutec MC3 Plus out of the MC3 Plus USB out of the chain made the sound quite drastically worse. So instead of feeding USB straight to the DAVE Dac, I'm now feeding back via the Mutec MC3 Plus USB. I'm using our Tellurium Q Silver Diamond, digital cable, SP diff digital cable, using BNC connections to the DAVE, and that restored the clean and clear, precise sound. So that, to me, was an interesting test, and it just goes to demonstrate just how important the signal quality is coming into the DAVE. Now, everybody that's got a DAVE and a Blue Mark II scaler probably already knows this, but when they've added on a Blue Mark II scaler, really they're not just getting kind of maybe the benefit of a reclock, they're getting the benefit of more tablet filters and other things obviously Rob Watts has done to that product. So it'd be very difficult to kind of narrow down one thing there, i.e. kind of another set of clocking on the USB signal to the DAVE is making a difference because of all those other things going on in there as well. So yeah, really, really interesting thing that, wasn't it? To be honest, I was expecting it to be the other way around. So it just goes to show the Mutec MC3 Plus USB is a really killer product. It's absolutely fantastic link in the chain, which obviously now is going to be staying. But that wasn't enough. That only put me back to where I was. A really clean and clear sound, but just sounding, everything was sounding just kind of too lean, and that means it comes over a bit hard and analytical sounding, which might be how some people have heard the DAVE sound. And if that's how you've heard the DAVE sound, then you've not heard it anywhere near its best, because since then I've been really active and really busy, and the sound quality I'm getting from this now is, it's blown me away. It's absolutely blown me away, and the thing, it's completely won me over as a DAC and preamplifier and as a hi-fi solution. But that's kind of skipping to the end of the video. Let's talk about what I did from there. So I thought, well, that hasn't worked, but I'm still confident that the incoming signal is making a difference. So let's go back to basics. So I've got back into all the settings for the audio PC and had a look where we was, and I was able to update a product called Feedalizer, which is like an optimization type of software. That opened up a few new options, which allowed me to make a few tweaks and changes. I'd obviously had to install the Chord Windows drivers to make the DAVE work over USB. Taking them off and reinstalling the drivers for the Mutec MC3 Plus USB just got me thinking about certain settings that are in there. We've got certain buffer settings and latency settings. So I had to play around with them and got it to a point where it kind of get a balance between a clean and clear transient and a more full-bodied sound. So yeah, so some settings changes really for the link to the DAVE helped things a bit, but we still wasn't there. So I was sitting there scratching my head thinking, what can I do? Where is, how am I going to unlock the key to this? And again, in the last video, I mentioned maybe the setup of Dirac Live was wrong. Again, because I'm trying to push, with the Chord Qtist and every other product I've had in here, you're always trying to push clarity. With the DAVE, I've not really been looking to push more clarity, not really. It's been a case of just trying to rebalance and balance the sound so that extra clarity and detail doesn't come across as hard or analytical. So I went all the way back to the start. I run a whole new set of Dirac Live measurements. Interestingly, this time around, I did it with the microphone vertical as opposed to horizontal. Now, a few people have commented in the Dirac Live setup guide video I made maybe 18 months ago, something like that, that I should have been using the microphone vertical. And it got me thinking about it, and whether you should be using it vertical or horizontal, I don't know how much of a difference it would make because of the calibration file. But from a physical point of view, if you use the microphone vertical, it's actually easier to get placed at a more exact position. Because it's vertical, you can kind of get it closer to the seat, and it just kind of slots in nicer, so you can actually position the microphone, I think, more accurately. Now, whether that's made a difference or not, really not sure, but definitely running Dirac Live again has definitely helped, because I've then created a DAVE target filter, or a DAVE equalization filter, and by that I just mean I've made a slightly different target curve for the DAVE, just to try and balance that sound a little bit better. And all I've really done is adjusted kind of the top end, really, from about 4 kilohertz up to maybe 15, and I've kind of made it just naturally track what the Kefs naturally do. Now, prior to that, I'd put a little bit of boost in the treble just to try and get a bit more life out of the system. But with things as they are now, that probably wasn't correct. And by doing that, it's been very instrumental for unlocking the performance of the Dave. Now, the way the Dave layers music and songs that get really intense, something like Sia, Elastic Heart. Now, about 3/4 of the way through that song, it just becomes intense with, it's just layer upon layer upon layer. And I don't know why they make that song sound like that. Maybe it's to come across a certain way on the radio. Now, I would have thought on most systems you'll listen to that and it will just become like a hardened mush of sound. And with the cutest, even with the cutest in the system before, yeah, it would just go a bit mushy at that point. But with the Dave, you can hear all the individual layers of that particular song. And I can only imagine with the Dave and the M scaler, just how much that would kind of even become even more clear. So that's kind of an example. When we listen to music, something like Dr. Dre and the 2001 album, are so cleverly and densely layered that listening to music like that through the Dave is just a revelation. So that's really, really interesting. So listening to music like that, kind of studio type music, the layering's really impressive. But when you listen to kind of live recorded music or music that's been recorded in spaces like, I don't know, churches and stuff like that, just the way now the room and the system is disappearing, and you just feel more. I don't know, you just feel more connected to not just the music or you know, the artists or whatever. You just feel more connected to the kind of space that you're listening in, and it's really, really, really. I don't know. It's just impressive. I think it's. I mean, I was speaking to Rob Watts about things, and obviously meeting him at Can Jam, you know, a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about, you know, listening to live music and then listening to recorded music, just feeling a little bit disappointed because it just doesn't deliver the emotion. Well, this, listen to music through this, it seems to deliver more of the performance, really, which is, it sounds so cliche, but when you listen to things, you know, aspects of certain songs, everything's just got more kind of life. Or listening to like a guitarist over there, or even a singer there, it's kind of it is the emotion of the performance, you know, regardless of what that performance is, singing, drums, or whatever. It just seems to come over much, much more, and I think it's because the sound, it just seems less flat. It's more of an elevated experience. It's more of a, I suppose, a realistic entity. Listening to music like that, it's just unbelievable. It's like a change in experience for the hobby, really. You know, you sit listening to music for years and years and years, and yet, you know, listening to stuff you're really familiar with through this, when you've got things set up really well, it's a seriously interesting experience. And listening to Dave set up like this, just taking things on in ways, in pretty much every way, but in certain areas like bass quality, the way bass has its own space, and the kind of how you can track the bass notes is absolutely excellent. I've got the full width of the system back now, but the system's got like a snappy sharpness and crispness that it's never had before at all. And I've tried hard to get it, and it's just never had it. I've managed to get a really natural and focused sounding mid-range, and one of the the ways to do that was back to Dirac Live. I'd said before about disabling its inbuilt balance and delay for the speakers. I'd said about disabling that. Well, with the Dave, I've been able to hear that the sound's been overlapping ever so slightly. So back to enabling that, obviously after our recalibration, and now we're getting seriously big and tangible mid-range, but that's really focused and really natural sounding. So it's very, very, very close to being blow you away good. Not quite, but very, very close. So I've come a hell of a long way in terms of sound quality in actually quite a short space of time. I want to hear the best from it. I want it to sound the best. I want the system to sound as good as it can. So right, that is where I'm at. Now, what's coming next is I've got a couple of other little things I just want to try, and then I'm going to make the song demonstration videos. The songs that people have asked for, they can dance and stuff like that. I've got all that ready to go, and some other gems, and things are sounding absolutely incredible now. Absolutely incredible. So I really can't wait to do the song demonstration videos, but I just wanted to make sure that I've got everything as best as it can be before I make them. So they'll be coming very, very soon. So I hope you've enjoyed this update. So it's update number 3. I've kind of gone full circle, obviously, with the Dave. I really appreciate what it can do. I really appreciate what it's doing. There's still a few things I think I can improve, a few areas that I think I can improve, and I can only imagine what it's like when you start bolting on, you know, a Blue or an M scaler, Hugo M scaler to it. So yeah, that's all obviously for exciting times, really, for the future. But as a standalone product, it does seriously deliver, but it also shows you kind of right and wrong for what you've got in the system. So you need to pay attention to details with this if you want to hear just what it's capable of. That's what I've learned. That is what I've learned. You know, it's been a big learning curve. It's not quite finished, but yeah, been a really enjoyable one. And to say, I've learned a lot from just having this here for a few weeks. A lot about not just how I've got the system set up and how I can improve that, but how music can sound and how I actually want my music to sound. The sound presentation I'm getting now is very, very different to what I had previously and what I thought was really good sound. It's different to that. It's presenting music in a different way, in a kind of a more raw way, which that isn't naturally what I like as an audiophile. It's not naturally what I necessarily warm to. But the more I'm listening to it, the more I'm appreciating it. As I say before, I don't know how I'm going to go back. I really don't know how I'm going to go back. So one of the negative things about doing this is when you have to give products back, you know, you have to go away and have a little cry to yourself. So that is where I'm at the moment. I'm actually really happy. You know, I put a lot of work in, really happy, and I'm nearly at the point of, you know, falling in love. So close. Right then, so that is update number 3. This is the last of the updates. Next will be song demonstration videos. Then we'll do the full review, because I feel like I'll have got as much out of it as I can in the time that I've got. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Don't forget, go visit the website. Leave us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Be seeing you soon. Take care.